Minnesota Vikings have been around since 1961. And I just want them to win a damn Super Bowl before I die. Welcome to Before I Die with Judd and Jesse on Purple Daily and Score North.
Just one before we die, you guys. That's all we're asking, for the Minnesota Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. I'm Jesse Pierce, writer for NHL.com. He's Judd Zulgad, our resident sports dad, talking all things positive about Minnesota sports as we know and love. And over here we got producer Ross. Ross, why do you love the Minnesota Vikings?
You know, the pain lets me know that I'm still alive, but furthermore, a 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Hello, my friends, we're part again. It's been a week. Where should we begin?
Creed's out, man. They're trying to force Creed now, but it
feels like
it's
forever.
Over. You got a running quarterback now. Creed is out.
It feels so good to part again. Oh,
what bands do Josh Dobbs like? That's the question.
NASA bands, whatever those would be.
Smart
bands. We got to find out. Smart bands, yeah.
Isn't lead singer of Weezer a smart guy? Rivers
Probably.
Cuomo, is that his name? He's a smart dude.
Okay.
Dexter Holland of The Offspring has a PhD, I believe.
There you see that. That's where
we're
we got to transition.
Bringing the knowledge that we didn't know we wanted. Really,
yeah.
I didn't even get to the final line of "Let's beat New Orleans."
Can I go now? Can I? Should I
There's a reason why you didn't get to that line. We tried to stop you.
He
I should have taken the cues. I'm sorry.
In case you guys couldn't tell from Ross's jubilance on today's episode, the Minnesota Vikings won again yesterday, 31-28. It's not the fact that they won, you guys. It's the fact on how they did it. Josh Dobbs come in, didn't even know most of his teammates' names, just came in, carried that team after Jaren Hall goes down with an injury. First things first, Judd, what did you take away from that game? Is Josh Dobbs going to be the savior of the Minnesota Vikings season this year?
I don't think he's going to be the savior. What I took away was this. I thought the most brilliant person on the field, speaking of brilliant men, was Kevin O'Connell, who had a game plan for Jaren Hall, then had to basically transition to Dobbs, who's more experienced and had played 8 games. Like, he was starting, just not in this offense, had to translate basically the entire offense on the fly, did it. I thought Kevin O'Connell really proved his worth. And you know what? Unlike the 2022 Vikings, this version of the team has faced a ton of adversity, injuries, things going wrong. And O'Connell somehow has led them to 4 straight wins. So I'm not sold on Dobbs. I am sold on O'Connell. And I'm also sold on this. It's a lot of fun to watch a running back who can take off when he wants to. I love the added elements of the run game from the quarterback.
Give it to me. That's all I've ever asked for in a quarterback. Let's be honest. I do want to clarify. We've been a little critical of K.O.C. I felt like on this show the past few weeks. We were never critical about his brains and intelligence, mind you. We were talking about different scenarios. So I would agree with you, Judd. Ross, what did you make of Kevin O'Connell? Again, as Judd said, one of his more brilliant performances as head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, everything about it was incredibly well done. And I might add, just incredibly fun. When was the last time you guys had that much fun watching a game? The other note is, and I think we'll touch on this, is basically O'Connell using the headset to describe the play to him, telling Dobbs what to do. And with that, sometimes you need players on the field who are extensions of the coaches. Well, let's not minimize how important Garrett Bradbury was yesterday. Another guy who at times has been a punching bag for some people. Great job calling out the protections, doing stuff that typically Kirk Cousins would do. But Jaren Hall into Josh Dobbs at this point in their careers or tenures with the Minnesota Vikings just couldn't do. So to be able to get on that page with your starting center and also to be able to not only get the play in, but walk the quarterback through the play so he knows what he's doing to find receivers, tight ends, and running backs he doesn't even know their names. Pretty impressive stuff.
Exactly. And just to get people up to speed on how improbable this was, he was traded from the Arizona Cardinals 5 days ago, had never taken a single snap with the offense in practice leading up to Sunday. With a come-from-behind performance, completes 20 of 30 passes for 158 yards, 2 touchdown passes, including the game-winning score throw to Brandon Powell. with 22 seconds left to give the Minnesota Vikings their 4th straight victory. I mean, Jed, what did you know about Josh Dobbs coming in aside from the veteran experience? Again, I didn't personally know a whole lot. What did you know? What did you kind of expect, or were you expecting him just to maybe keep his head above water yesterday, and then he came out with the performance like he did?
Well, I expected that Jaren Hall wouldn't get hurt. I think 11 plays into his tenure as the quarterback. And so, like, I thought Josh Dobbs, I mean, his story's been pretty well told, aerospace engineering, went to Tennessee. I actually played a game for the Titans last year on the same type of schedule, very short. Then went to the Cardinals, got that job. I actually think the Cardinals might have benched him now because he was a threat to win a game or two. He had won one game, upset of Dallas. Didn't know a whole lot. But when he started off with the safety and with the fumbles, I mean, I thought it was going to be a disaster. Like right there, I thought they have no chance. They have absolutely no chance. It was a fun game though, because of the fact, like, it was almost like an underdog Disney film, right? Where like the guy gets in and it's a disaster at first, and then it's like, he's the guy that leads the team. So I actually thought it was, while not a well played game per se, I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. But my knowledge of Josh Dobbs was basically limited to backup journeyman has played before. And I was, quite frankly, excited to see Jaren Hall. I thought, okay, let's see what the kid can do.
We'll get more to Jaren Hall, but I do want to mention, personally, like you had said, Judd, I loved the run game. The leading rusher on the day was Josh Dobbs with 7 carries for 66 yards, touchdown run, several run extending drives, keeping the hopes of winning alive. Ross, how excited are you to see a quarterback in purple run like Josh Dobbs did yesterday?
Very excited if it can continue. I think we maybe all have our doubts on how sustainable it is, but again, we've talked about this numerous times. The schedule is also fairly favorable. I think we'd be naive to think that the Vikings are going to win every game between now and when they play Detroit next, but there's still a chance to win some games with meat on the bone. Look, Cousins can move at times. The Vikings, especially the last coaching staff, told him, run more, you're capable. But it is fun to see a quarterback who can do it at slightly a different level. I think I like what I saw yesterday as far as going through the progressions first and then scrambling versus one read and scrambling like you see from a lot of inexperienced quarterbacks, especially in the college game. I thought that was nice to see. Actually, his run on 4th and 7, I thought he was going to be caught from behind. I'm not even sure if he knew there were 2 guys chasing him, maybe just the one. And then not only to get the first down, but to get all the way into field goal range, and then still with plenty of time to say, oh, look, Greg Joseph has had a nice day, but we don't need to leave it up to him. We can win this game. And that's exactly what they did. So the running element to me adds a lot of fun. However, and I'm sure you guys noticed this, he likes to run with that football just kind of floating out there high and tight. Get that thing high and tight, Josh. We don't need that ball to be knocked away. But no, just a really fun game. And I don't know if you can call it a brilliant performance, but just a really fun, good performance. And I think something that this fan base needed if you are trying to make the playoffs and rally around your team, which I think pretty much by and large everybody is trying to do at this point. So fun to see.
Feel good vibes, no doubt, which is something the Minnesota Vikings fan base needed, especially after Jaren Hall gets hurt. Had a nice first drive. Judd, how unfortunate is this for Jaren Hall? He had the opportunity and then injury pushes him back once again.
Well, it's very unfortunate because, I'm almost positive that he's not going to be cleared to play Sunday against the Saints, because if you think about it, it looked like he suffered a legit concussion. Like he didn't just get his bell rung. He got hit in the head as he was being tackled, and then his head went and slammed off the turf. Mm-hmm. So I'm guessing he's not going to be in no shape to practice by Wednesday or Thursday. And if you can't practice those days, heck, if you're a veteran, sometimes you can't start. So it's unfortunate. And because he did have that, the first drive was actually rough, but the second drive was super impressive. And it's funny because if you go back, if he hits Hawkinson on that pass in the end zone on the second drive, he never has to take off and run, and the game might be totally different as far as Jaren Hall playing. So it's too bad. But selfishly, here's what I like about this. Okay. It has nothing to do with Hall and has nothing to do with Dobbs. There's a very good chance that both of those guys are nothing more than place holders. I mean, Jaren Hall's a 5th round pick. So, like, if he turns out to be good, awesome, but you have no idea. Josh Dobbs is a journeyman. But what I love is, and this to me is the most important thing, Kevin O'Connell with a mobile quarterback. Because can you imagine if you got a really good one who could throw the ball too? Like, you just opened up your playbook yesterday, and yes, you had to take out some Kirk things, but can you imagine if you had a quarterback that could do what Kirk can do arm talent wise, but also scramble, take off, roll out? I mean, my God, if you're O'Connell, and I'm sorry, Kirk fans, and Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but in 2023, that skill set, whew, that's got to be tempting to try to find that guy. And if Kevin O'Connell can, that's how you win a Super Bowl.
Well, and Judd, look at the NFL draft coming up. Drake May, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Gabriel from Oklahoma, and a few more. They're all guys that can move around and run a bit, and you can utilize their speed to do things with them in the passing game and offensively. I think you're maybe kind of seeing the template of what K.O.C. might want to do going forward, albeit just one game. But the interesting part here is when Hall goes down and you go to Dobbs, very similar quarterbacks to your point, Judd. For Hall, you can still find some positives here. He did get all week knowing he was the starter. He was able to go through that progression, if you will, get some time at the beginning of the game. Hopefully he gets back here healthy sooner rather than later. And if this thing goes pear-shaped, which I hope it doesn't, but it still could, you still could see Jaren Hall the final few weeks of the year under center once or twice if the record and the schedule dictates that. So I'm choosing to find the positive in that, other than the poor kid getting a concussion in a very inopportune time. It's entirely possible, and this is no disrespect to Josh Dobbs. He was put in a really bad situation and basically made the absolute best that you possibly could have. But if Jaren Hall doesn't get injured, the Vikings likely go for it there on 4.5 yards. Maybe they score a touchdown. It's possible the Vikings could have ran away with that game yesterday with Jaren Hall starting. So I think there's maybe, I mean, I don't know. It's a rookie quarterback, but I think there's a lot of good you can take away from both quarterbacks yesterday, aside from the concussion for Jaren Hall.
We talk about the mobile quarterback, the quarterback that's willing and able to run, which is especially good for the Minnesota Vikings, who have zero run game. Why is it so bad? Judd, what is happening? Why is the run game comically atrocious at this point for the Minnesota Vikings?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, when is not we, because it's not we. When is O'Connell?
I can run the football. Just let everybody know I can run the football now.
Alexander
You're
Madison.
a fall forward running back, aren't you, Jesse? You might get hit, but you're going forward for a yard or two.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Alexander Madison was a far more effective receiver on 2 catches Sunday than he was a runner. Cam Akers has now torn his Achilles, so his season and probably Vikings career is finito. You've got to do something here. Now Dobbs does help. Like, you did compensate for it by the fact that Dobbs can run, and I would fully expect that the ability to run is going to remain part of Dobbs' game, even with more knowledge of what O'Connell wants offensively. But yeah, this has to be fixed. I mean, you've got to do something, and I don't think that you can by any means flat out blame the line. I mean, this is a running back problem too, and the loyalty to Madison and just trying to force it, I guess, is what I don't get. But you have to find a different, give Ty Chandler a chance. And I know he can't block as well, but you know what? Quite frankly, with Dobbs, you've got the opportunity now because he can scramble more. Like with Kirk, I totally get it. If the running back can't block, you are screwed because he is a pocket passer. But they have to find a way to at least make the perception of their run game that doesn't involve quarterback scrambles a threat. And they are, as far as I can tell, they are nowhere close. Occasionally they get some, 8-yard runs, but that's about it, I think.
The one thing I wonder too is at what point, Judd and Jesse, can you start to manufacture or simulate something that's at least closer to runs instead of handing the ball off on 1st and 10 and winding up in 2nd and 12? Can you run some reverses? Can you run some wide receiver screens? Can you mix in a screen pass to your running backs on occasion? They tried doing more of that. They actually, again, looked like they had a chance early in the game for one of them to break, but one block was missed and that blew up the screen pass. But you just wonder, are there other things they can do like that so you're not constantly sitting in 2nd and 12 or 3rd and long? I'd like to see a little bit more of that, but then again, if teams know it's coming, the likelihood of that working isn't very high either.
Yeah, no, that's very, very true. It's frustrating to watch. I love the run game. I really do. That would have been if I were to be an elite football player, which in my mind, of course, I am, just not a good fantasy football manager. You'd be able to run the ball far more effectively than the Minnesota Vikings have figured out. But because we're not all negative on this show, we're not all negative
No,
on Score
not at
North.
all.
We are happy, positive people. Let's give some credit to the Minnesota Vikings defense. Let's also give some credit to Byron Murphy Jr., the cornerback. 3 tackles, 2 passes defended. He looks absolutely exceptional. Judd, what have you seen from Byron Murphy Jr. and how great of a player has he slowly transformed into throughout early of the season?
It's weird because PFF grades, which, you know, the football world goes by, the PFF grades for him have not been good. And I guess he's got, like, some of that's a little bit probably nuanced as to who's supposed to be covering where and what defensive coverage you're in. But yeah, he had a definite, really nice game. He could have had 2 or 3 picks. Like he broke up a few, to your point, broke up 2 passes. But I think the man of the hour, just as O'Connell was Brian Flores. What he's done with this defense has just been exceptional. I mean, this defense was, dare I say it, oftentimes a year ago, garbage. And it wasn't the players' fault necessarily, but I mean, it was not good. It was not really competitive. It was very passive aggressive instead of aggressive. And Brian Flores has come in and basically turned this defense a 180 to now where they're super aggressive. And yes, they get beat at times. I would far rather get beat being aggressive, though, than being back on my heels. And what he has done has been really exceptional. And I have a great appreciation because I think when you watch the success of this defense, it's largely coaching. And for anyone who says, you know, in sports, coaches aren't important, coordinators aren't, I call it BS because in this case, the coordinator, incredibly important.
Well, in saying that, sorry, Ross, in saying
you go
that,
ahead.
how likely is it that Brian Flores stays as defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings, right? I mean, I think people are seeing that and going to
Sure.
say, hey, let's go head coach, Mr. Flores.
I mean, he deserves that chance. Now, I will say this again, and it's a pretty drawn out process. He is suing the National Football League. And as long as he's suing the league, I'm curious what jobs he had a chance. For instance, I think he turned it down to talk to the Cardinals last year. But here's the thing with Brian. One, if he's still suing the league this offseason, I think he'll still get sniffs. But, you know, he went through the entire Dolphins thing, which is what started the suit that he filed up. And I think he's smart enough to know that he wants and he's in position for the right job.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know he's going to jump if he gets a bottom feeding the Raiders column, right? Oh, we want you to be. I don't know he's going to jump. I mean, he's been through ownership that is not great before. Long story short, Ross, I wouldn't be surprised to see him here 2 years. I would not be absolutely shocked. And I think if he comes back for a second, you could be looking at a really interesting season, especially as the personnel gets more honed towards him in 2024.
Yeah, the writing's on the wall for Brian Flores leaving. It just depends on how etched in stone on that, I don't know, BC wall that it is. I don't know why I use stone as the example there. But it's only a matter of time. I think the Vikings obviously would love him here as long as possible. And to Judd, to your point, imagine when he gets another year with some free agency money to bring in a few players that he likes, has identified will work with his defense, and maybe even has a say in a player or two that gets drafted early on in the draft. One thing that I think will be important for K.O.C. going forward and K.O.C. going forward, when Brian Flores does inevitably leave, make sure the guy who follows him is similar, because you're going to have a defense that is entirely built around Brian Flores, who's here for a year, 2, maybe 3 max. That's probably the biggest time frame you'll have him for. You want to make sure that whoever you bring in is maybe somebody who's currently in the system, or maybe quote unquote the disciple of Brian Flores, or otherwise you're starting over again. And I don't think anybody wants to see that. So I think Vikings fans were thrilled when he got here, and I think we all knew they would be better. I mean, look, they're not great, but I would say they're functional. And I'm not even positive I thought they could be functional this year.
No
So
question.
I mean, I think they're
solid.
I'm ecstatic to see that. And you go back to yesterday, they were really good yesterday. They were just put in a lot of bad spots, held up very well, really only gave up the field goal, the one long touchdown to Jonnu Smith. And that touchdown late, you can almost argue that's just from being on the field so often and getting a little bit extra tired because of that. So honestly, are the Vikings 5-4 without Brian Flores? I don't think they are.
No, I agree.
I completely agree. I love what I'm seeing. Since we talked about extending or keeping around personnel, I know our YouTube comments also bring up extending some certain folks. So Ross, why don't we hit them with it?
Comments from YouTube.
You are just the segue master, Jeff.
I love how that's so short, though.
I'm so proud of you. The open?
Like, I always expect more. Like, I'm like, okay, what's next? Comments from YouTube. That's it.
You know what I do need to play, Jesse, just to get this out of the way, because I've been itching for now a half a season to do this. Did you say you're having another rough fantasy football season?
Yeah, we don't talk about it. Dead.
Obligatory fantasy football mention.
I was. For the opening of last year, I was very chatty about it, but that's when my team was still very good. And then if you ever notice, if I'm not doing well in things, I just ignore it.
Just
completely.
don't talk about it.
Just don't talk about it. Then it goes away. The problem usually leaves.
You know, it's an easy way to live
Solid.
life. You know, notice I haven't talked about the Gophers since 6:00 on Saturday.
Right. Yeah.
If you just don't deal with the issue, there's nothing wrong.
What a glorious loss that was.
It was quite incredible.
No.
At DJones-MW9MK. Extend Hunter now. Judd, Jesse, the Vikings need to extend Danielle Hunter, don't they?
Jesse, go ahead.
I mean, absolutely 5 tackles. Just a tremendous performance by him, keeping Algier to a minimum yesterday. I love it. I would like to keep Danielle Hunter around for as long as you can. Let's go, right, Judd?
Oh yeah, once you didn't trade him, keep him.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to pay him, but he's worth it. Look, he's near 30, which worries me, but he's been unbelievable this season. So yes, the comment from YouTube, I agree with completely. I think you have to extend him. Hopefully it can be a 3-year contract, because I prefer not to go beyond 3. But yeah, I think it is a no-brainer now that he is what's the word I'm looking for? Linchpin of your defense.
Ooh,
and if the contract is structured well, you can get out of it after 2 years and really not have it bury you if you structure it well.
And he deserves what he's going to get.
Yes.
Like he deserves it. But yeah, I prefer not to go anywhere near a 4th or 5th year.
It's just interesting because I know the flagship Purple Dailies talked about this an awful lot, but he's a guy that left a lot of money on the table in this current contract. So you wonder how that might affect the negotiations going forward this time around.
True. But they tore up this year to give him a new contract because he was holding in. So, but yeah, he has been, I knew he was still good. I didn't know he was still this good.
I love this next comment from YouTube, our last of the day, mainly because I love the name. The name, Zoinks! In 1977, Fran Tarkington broke his leg in the middle of the season.
Yep.
Bob Lee and Tommy Kramer led the Vikings to the NFC Championship that year. Here's the question.
Okay.
What's more impressive? That Fran broke his leg in 1977, not 2021, in 1977, came back and played in 1978,
last season,
or that in 1978, he threw 32 interceptions. 32. What's more impressive?
Oh, the 32
broken leg
picks.
comeback or the 32,
the 32 picks. The 32 picks. But you know what?
That's
1978.
insane.
I know, but go look at 70s, go to Pro Football Reference and call up like Terry Bradshaw's page, Tarkington's page, Namath. They all threw a ton of picks. So 32 picks now. If there was an interception exchange rate, 32 picks now is what, like 15?
Yeah.
where we'd be.
Interception exchange rate
So
might be
yes,
the best thing you've ever said on this podcast.
well, thank you. It's extremely impressive, but yeah, I like back then. You just slung the ball around, man. Just
It
slung the
was a
ball around.
lawless time. Just wild
It
cards.
was.
Always.
It was.
I love it.
Favre was like the last vestige of that, like
Yeah.
he didn't play back then, but he was, his whole, I'm just going to throw that ball. I mean, you go back and watch passes from back then, they're sailing all over the place.
This is not, I'm not making an age joke here, Judd. Do you remember that 1978 season at all? Did you watch it? Do you remember it?
I watched it. Yeah.
How did he
I went
move,
to a game.
How did he move around?
Tarkington?
Yeah, like to me, I mean, I know, like I'm not trying to make out the late 70s to be the Stone Age, but modern medicine's changed a lot in 50 years.
It's a broken leg, though. Like you set the leg back then.
Yep.
Like it's not like I think in the 70s, for instance. Well, I don't think I know. A torn ACL was a lot bigger of deal because it was hard. That was like you had to go in and do major surgery, and you still didn't know if it was going to be fixed. I think if you had a 1970s injury of choice, a broken leg was probably pretty high. Because if it was just a fracture, you set the leg and, you came back. But like torn ligaments, ACLs, MCLs, and that was where it was a real problem because they hadn't come close to honing the surgeries that they have now. And I think a lot of it now is done, if I'm not mistaken, arthroscopically.
Mm-hmm.
So like they don't even have to go in and lay the whole knee open. So
whatever happened to, I don't think he was a knee doctor. I think he was more arm and shoulder. Whatever happened to our boy, was it Dr. James Andrews? Remember when everybody saw him for like 10 years?
Yeah, I think he retired.
James Andrews that we all go see? Because you don't hear him mentioned much.
Yeah, he was now, if I'm not mistaken, the originator of Tommy John surgery was Dr. Frank Jobe. Dr. Jobe was the 70s guy.
Okay.
But
so we're now in the
Andrews,
new era. We had Jobe in the 70s. We had Andrews in the 90s and zeros. Now we're on to somebody else.
Now it's the guy who's like the Mets doctor.
Yeah.
Who did the surgery on Joe Nathan back in the day.
Joe Nathan. There's a name drop for you on Before I Die.
Lot of I know. Who's the is there a big time hockey doctor? Like nationally, not for the Wild.
You know what?
If I've heard of one.
I don't think
I don't think we have a doctor in puck.
No.
We just tough it out, Roscoe.
Exactly. Jules broke his leg last year. He was back at the season. Nobody questioned it. It was fine.
Just rub some dirt on it and go.
Yeah, he also tried to play in a playoff game, which was a massive mistake.
Amazing. Yeah.
Put him down one man. Talk about stuff. Anyway, go
for
ahead.
More hockey talk, follow us on Judd's Hockey Show.
Yeah.
Episodes every week.
Judd's Hockey Show airs a couple times a week during the season. ScoreNorth.com, wherever you get your podcasts.
Exactly. See, we're trying, guys. We're trying for you, Vikings fans, to limit the puck talk. With that, maybe that's a Before I Die. Before I Die, we will not have a puck mention on this episode. But Roscoe, let's get to those official Before I Dies, if you don't mind.
The Minnesota Vikings have been around since...
Hey, you don't want that one. You want this one.
Time now for the Before I Die crew to give us their Before I Dies.
Ross, why don't you kick us off this week?
All right, so I haven't talked about it since 6 o'clock on Saturday. I know this is a Vikings podcast, but Judd, I was very happy to see you do I think it was a Morning Judd where you talked about, okay, firing PJ Fleck sounds great, but what's next? Okay, first off, they're not firing PJ Fleck. He's the most successful coach here in 50, 60 years. You can define success however you want. I get that. But it's been a pretty darn good run, okay? And I'm not here to defend him. The losses to Northwestern and Illinois this year are embarrassing, and they're more than likely going to cost you a chance to be the sacrificial lamb against Ohio State or Michigan in the Big Ten title game. I get that. I'm not even convinced this team will win another game because they're that bad offensively. Defensively, they're okay, but they have lapses, as we saw on Saturday. All I'm going to say is Before I Die, in this town, specifically with football, we will quit calling for the head coach's head anytime there's a bad season, and we'll start to go, 60 years of mediocrity. It might not just be the head coach's problem. This year specifically, he is to blame. His conservativeness has cost them 2 games and will cost them a chance to win the Big Ten West, more than likely. 60-ish years of being stuck in the middle towards the bottom. What is the common denominator? There have been multiple head coaches. There are structural issues at the University of Minnesota that go beyond the head coach. Until all that stuff is figured out, and the university has a commitment to winning at a high level in athletics, this is what you're going to get. It doesn't matter if it's Judd Zolgad coaching or PJ Fleck.
It would, because I'd cheat.
Well, I'd
start cheating. What you're trying to say, just say it. Just come out and say it.
Yeah.
Before you die, that program needs to cheat its ass off in the sports that we
don't
want
get
them
caught.
to win.
Just don't get caught.
And if you do, you know what you do? Flip the double bird to the NC2 way and say, we're going to keep doing it this way. You kick us out.
And that's basically what Jim Harbaugh is doing right now, right?
Exactly.
He's going to say, Jim Harbaugh at the end of the year is going to say, you can't suspend me because I quit. I'm going to the NFL.
And actually, right now, I believe the investigation's complete, and it looks like they're going to suspend Harbaugh for like 3 games. The school informed the NCAA, perhaps, I think, not the Big Ten. You go ahead and do that. We're taking you all to court.
Great.
Genius.
Yep.
As soon as somebody says, you know what, you cheated, you say, first of all, you're lying. And second of all, we're going to court. And I'm going to tie this up with your money that I make off of you. It's time to cheat.
Can I circle back? We'll circle this back to the Minnesota Vikings. Remember when the Williams Wall did that with Star Caps? Or was it Star Caps, as that was called? They fought off those suspensions for almost, 2-3 years?
Pat retired.
Yeah.
And Kevin got his suspension cut from 4 to 2 games and played 2 games pro bono, which is just another great part of the story.
All I'm saying is, before I die, I don't like this, Judd. I'm there every Saturday, basically.
They got to cheat.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is you got to have a little bit of situational awareness with where the university's at.
Right. Well, and until they decide that their athletic program's going rogue, you're not going to, guess what? Clem's team, 96, right?
Yeah.
They cheated. Guess what? They went to the Final Four.
Oh, to your point too, Judd, I'd put those banners back up.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Because I'd be cheating again. Yeah.
I love it so much.
Just cheat. Okay,
all right, I'm done. Somebody else
before I die quick, here's the thing. I want some type of button so I can push it right now, right today, and the leaves will fall off my damn tree. Because I got a leaf guy that comes. And it's November and it's cold, right?
Leaf guy. Of course you have a leaf guy.
My leaf guy comes and goes,
fill up.
More than half the leaves. I got 2 trees that look like it's July. This is a bunch of crap. I need a leaf thing that I can. I'm not asking them to go away by themselves. I'm more than happy to have my leaf guy come, but I got to get them off the trees because I don't want to call right now and then November 28th a bunch fall off. That's my before I die.
You need to go outside right now, Judd. You take one tree, Dawn takes the other, and you just
not gonna work. They're too big of trees.
We have a tree that the leaves stayed on all winter. Something was wrong with it. I don't know what's wrong with it. They were dead, but they hung out. It was bizarre.
That's weird.
Very weird.
Oh.
Waters are different in White Bear Lake. Before I die, I'm going to be a savage as my 4-year-old. My 4-year-old has been on this savagery lately. He not only stuck a Lego up his nose to remove the sniffles. He is absolutely ridiculous, but he is just so darn witty and quick and just doesn't care what happens to you. Like yesterday, for instance, twice I sneezed 2 times in a row and I'm like, oh, excuse me. And the kids were all sitting there playing on their iPads. And I was like, well, bless me. And Caden, without even looking up from his iPad, he's like, yeah, no, nobody said that to you, Mom. Nobody told you bless you. And I was like, I know nobody told me bless me, child. Then I take him to outdoor practice because I'm a great mom who wants to give these experiences to their children that most children don't ever get. First of all, he was not thrilled with the fact that hockey was being played outside, which is already an embarrassment for me. Second of all, he sees all the nets in Marc-Andre Fleury's goal because they must have been doing warm-ups. It wasn't that Marc-Andre Fleury was getting just shelled. And he was like, wow, that guy let a lot of scores in. And then he proceeds to tell Fleury this when he meets Fleury. He goes, there was a lot of pucks in your net. And Marc-Andre just was like,
good for him.
I know. It was just savage.
Good for Caden.
That's my before I die, I'll be as quick and witty as him or teach.
We need more people like Caden in Minnesota sports media.
Maybe that's what he's angling.
It sounds to me like in 17 years, young Caden's first birthday of drinking is going to be worth being at for mom, is what it sounds like.
That's probably very true. There's
He
a
won't
chair,
have a
yeah.
single drop of alcohol till he's 21, right, Jesse?
That's
Not
not-
a single drop.
Exactly.
That sounds like a kid. That sounds like a kid who could be a lot of fun.
He's gonna be a clown, which I have mixed feelings about, but we'll see. We certainly will see. Vikings not clowning us anymore, so we love to see that. Again, don't forget to get all of your Vikings information over at Purple Daily and Score North. Shows, breakdowns, all the good stuff that you want, all the good stuff that you need each and every day of each and every week, not to mention all the Minnesota sports content over on Score North, including our hockey talk, as you guys know and love, Judd's Hockey Show Wednesdays. Otherwise, until next week, we at Before I Die will see you later. Ross, please end appropriately.
Can you take me to Hennepin County?